This video is brought to you by my supporters on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, Nas.io, and YouTube. If you wish to support me, you can find the links below.
Sugar is bad thing actually started out when they first did that experiment where they gave sugar to rats and cocaine, and where rats preferred, say sugar over cocaine. Most people don't know. The moment you make that bread a brown bread, then it becomes healthier in everyone's eyes, and then people just start eating 4 slices of it instead of eating one.
Again, coming back to my question, is Maida intrinsically bad?
Maida is not evil. Sugar is not evil. The way it can make you overeat without realizing. So that is the problem. From a health point of view, it's not whether you are eating refined oil or cold pressed oil that matters, but the total quantity of oil that you are eating.
I spoke to someone who has been in the field of nutrition for more than 20 years and has experience working as a clinical nutritionist, Amita Gadre. She is also a content creator on both YouTube and Instagram, and her page is a breath of fresh air amongst all these creators who are posting fear-mongering content. My previous video explored this culture of diet fear-mongering, and I got a couple of comments below that video that gave me a few points of criticism. Rather than me speak about it, I thought why not get the help of an expert. Hi, my name's Pranav. You're watching scienceisdope. On to the podcast. Hi, Amita ma'am. Welcome to the scienceisdope podcast. I wanted to ask you certain questions regarding some comments that I got in my recent diet nutrition fear-mongering video. By the way, people that are watching, Amita Gadre is a professional nutritionist and she's active on social media. I'll link her pages below. And she gives really thoughtful and in-depth nutrition advice on both Instagram and YouTube. So I'll link her pages below. So, ma'am, are you ready? Shall we look at the comments?
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah. So this is the one comment that I got. Not really a hate comment, but yeah, don't they say sugar is bad because they can increase insulin resistance? So can you tell us a bit about insulin resistance in general, and like, does sugar intrinsically, like, anytime I have sugar, am I at risk of increasing my insulin resistance?
Let's first look at sugar, then insulin resistance, and then we will understand this whole scenario of sugar, whether it's causing you insulin resistance or not. Now, simply put, sugar or glucose essentially in different forms, be it as jaggery or as white sugar or honey. It's all glucose end of the day, or it could be like, say, a fructose, which is a combination of sucrose, which is a combination of fructose and glucose. So, end of the day, it's all monosaccharides, like energy unit, which is glucose, right? Now, if you look at white sugar per se, why is it so warned about to give, all over? Why is everyone, no one you will find is saying, hey, sugar is good for you, go take, consume it as much as you want. Why are people doing that? Simply because sugars is empty calories. Okay, by when we say empty calories, you're not getting any other nutrition from it. Like, no, there's no protein, there's no fat, there's no other micronutrients. It's only simple energy, like the carbs that you're getting. These carbs, because they are in the simplest form, they're also most easily absorbed in our body, which then leads to a glucose spike. And like, say you the glucose spike then can lead to you wanting to eat more and so forth. This insulin or this sugar is bad thing actually started out when they first did that experiment where they gave sugar to rats and cocaine, and where rats preferred, say, sugar over cocaine. Now, everyone knows that sugar is used as an agent to enhance taste in lots of products. So in our world of ever exploding ultra processed foods, sugar is literally omnipresent, which is why they say that when the moment you are eating empty calories, what happens is you can very quickly exceed your total calorie intake. Okay, so I was looking at your video, the one on fear mongering, where you said that you don't drink a bottle of Coke simply because it is going to very quickly increase your total calorie intake, right? So, and that overall increase in your total calorie intake is what is going to lead you to gain fat, because your body cannot store energy in any form other than fat. Mostly, okay. So of course you have some glycogen stores in your liver and muscle, but that's a very small amount. So your most preferred way of storing energy for your body is in the form of fat. Extra anything in your body, any macro, okay, be it carbs, be it protein, be it sugar, as in fat, all of it gets stored as fat tissue in your body. Increase in the fat tissue, increase in your weight, increase in your obesity is what then leads to your a decreased or a diminished insulin response. So when they are saying that you need to be avoiding or you need to be watching how much sugar you are eating so as to not lead come to a place of insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is nothing but your body not being able to recognize, or the insulin not being able to do its job right. Okay, so you can, to put it absolutely in simple terms, you can imagine insulin to be like a class monitor who doesn't know what to do, how to do his job, because he's overwhelmed, because there's too much, like say information, or there's all of this fat tissue which is blocking its receptors or its brain centers. Okay, so the moment you drop weight, or the moment you start eating healthier, then this class monitor wakes up and realizes that the children need to be, be disciplined in the class, or need to be inside the classroom, which is in your body cells. Okay. Now, excess sugar, if you're going to increase your calorie intake, is going to increase your weight, and hence it can, eventually lead you to insulin resistance kind of a scenario. But that does not mean that the converse is true. That does not mean that if I'm having 1 teaspoon of sugar today, or if I have 2 cups of tea in a day, which has added, let's say, sugar as 1 teaspoon of sugar, does not mean that I'll immediately start getting insulin resistance, because insulin resistance is a product of your total calories over a large span of time. So an excessive load of calories over a really large span of time for you to be able to gain weight, fat tissue increasing or body fat percent increasing, that then increases your insulin or chances of insulin resistance. However, if you look at studies, and if you simply enter on Google how much sugar compared with insulin resistance, now studies show that dropping your sugar intake will drop your insulin resistance as well. Okay, why? Because the math is simple. Your calorie intake reduces, your total calorie intake is reducing. The easiest way of dropping calories from your diet is by removing all of these simple added sugars from your diet. So obviously the sugar that you can see and the sugar that you cannot see as well, all of it, the hidden sugars as well. So that's the easiest way of dropping calories from your diet. And once you do that, once your sugars are less than 5% of your total calories. So if you are on a 2000 calorie diet, like an average diet for a man, then your sugar intake should be less than 5 teaspoons per day. When I say sugar, I mean sugar, jaggery, honey, maple syrup, everything. And this 5% or the 5 teaspoon also includes added sugar like in ketchup or mayonnaise and juices and drinks and everything. So total sugar needs to be less than 5%.
If I exceed my that 5 teaspoon limit on one day, but on subsequent days, I manage my sugar intake so that the average is 5 teaspoons per day. Is that an okay thing to do?
On paper, yes, if I was doing a standard math. But the challenge is that the moment you start eating, exceeding, because when you are saying exceeding, it could be 6 teaspoons, it could be 60 teaspoons, right? And then you're going to be like, okay, after that, I'm just going to fast, not eat anything to bring that calories down, because that is the impact that it will have for you. If you're having 60 teaspoons of sugar per day additionally to your standard diet, you will have to fast for 5 days after that. In that scenario, it will not have any effect. But if you're not fasting and still you're exceeding, then over time it is going to come back to you. Plus the other problem is that once you start eating that much high level of sugars, you will find that in some individuals the preference for food changes. So you then start, like say, of course, the scientific community is very divided over whether sugar is addictive or not. But and there's because if you look at say the addiction scales, or if you look at a standard the way addiction works in a drug like say cocaine versus sugar, you don't see an exact response. You can't compare it like every symptom or response with sugar that way. But
That's my cat. I'm
so your
sorry.
cat is here. So if you see as in if you compare cocaine to sugar, or the like say drug addiction versus sugar addiction kind of a scenario, the community is still divided. We don't have enough research on that. But still, it has been seen that food addiction is real. And if you keep on taking in ultra processed foods, which typically are high on sugar and fat, then you do tend to want it more and more because they are designed or engineered to, for you to want to eat more of it.
One thing I want to ask is insulin resistance. Is it only sugar that can cause insulin resistance, or any nutrient like say fats or proteins or anything? Is it only sugar? Should we villainize sugar just on this name of insulin resistance?
No. So, insulin resistance, like I said, happens because of an excess of calories.
Calories.
Now, that excess calories can come from a millet laddu made, which has almonds, which has desi A2 ghee, which also has, made from jaggery and everything. If I'm going to be eating too many of those laddus over time, even that will, make me increase my body weight and hence lead me to insulin resistance. So it's not just sugar, but you need to be very mindful of your total calories and your total macros. So while excessive protein has not been shown like to give you insulin resistance directly, although it can eventually cause you to gain weight, and over time then you will you could probably have insulin resistance. But carbs and fat, or in any form, even if it is something as brown rice, eat it in mad unlimited quantities every day over time, leading you to weight gain, can lead to insulin resistance. It's about total calories end of the day.
We also spoke a bit about addiction, and I have a couple of questions on that sugar and cocaine, that study.
Okay.
Is addiction to sugar or ultra processed foods, is it something that can be easily overcome? Like if I just use some willpower and eat salads more than my processed food, is that difficult for me to do?
See, food addiction is a very complex phenomenon, because food is not just about you eating and then you getting say a joyous response. Food is as complex as I could be eating simply to be with you, and you like ice cream since I'm eating ice cream, and then eventually I could get addicted to ice cream. Because, or it could then, like, if your boyfriend loved eating say a lot of high calorie foods, and then you get used to that, you break up with that boyfriend, then you're going to be eating that in sadness as well. So any kind of scenario is possible, because food is very intricately linked with a lot of our emotional and mental well-being as well. So when we speak about say someone being addicted to eating ice cream at night to cope with emotional say stresses in their life, it is real. So it's not, they are actually, eating that to feel good. And they are also feeling good, that they would report then that they are feeling better. So, and not everyone can be as strong as what you are saying, that one could just use extreme willpower and, do that, because our triggers to food are very complex. Like, for example, and the world that we live in, right? I mean, around 4 o'clock, you get all of these Dunzos and Swiggies and Zomatos and all food delivery apps sending you notifications saying, hungry kya? So you have a lot of external cues everywhere all the time, which are going to push you towards that. So avoiding eating, say, high calorie foods, or saying that I know I am addicted to this pizza, but now I'm not going to eat that and just go cold turkey on it. Very few people can do it. So you do need a certain help in managing food addictions or eating disorders as well?
I asked that question because personally, from my experience, and this is anecdotal, but if when I made the switch to eating only salads and no processed food, I didn't find any major difficulty. I didn't find it impossible to do anything. So yeah,
That's
that,
because you were not in an environment which was pushing you towards it. Possibly, you were also in an environment or had friends around who were encouraging that behavior, or you are just extremely strong-willed. But it is true, of course, that if you are eating healthier, say all the people who come to me. To give you an example from the work that I do, there are a lot of people who say that I want to learn how to manage my cravings. Okay, now cravings is something which happens due to two reasons. One is you're just used to to feel good from a certain food, and the second is when your diet is deficient in proteins. Okay, so the moment you fix the protein balance in a person's diet, you find that they will not get cravings as much, because then your body has a sustained release energy source. So you have whole carbs, you have proteins, so you're sated, you feel satisfied with your food for longer. And along with that, you're also going to be eating salads or vegetables that again add in a certain fiber component and are going to keep you full for longer. So cravings are multifactorial, wherein one is if you're literally like setting yourself up for a craving. If you're not eating right, you are going to get a craving at 4 p.m. if your lunch was only roti sabzi. Okay, that's a given. You will want to go and have that grilled cheese sandwich or something when you have not eaten a good lunch. But if you have eaten a good breakfast, a good lunch, then the likelihood of you binging or getting a craving drops. And this has been shown with multiple research studies.
yeah. We'll move on to the next comment. My cat is being all cute.
She just wants to be here just now.
Yeah, she. So I usually treat her if she jumps on my lap. So I think she just wants
You need to
some
stop
drinks.
doing that.
Huh?
You need to stop doing that. That's become like a reward mechanism.
Yeah, maybe. But I kind of like it when she jumps on my lap, and this is good for the video. I think when I was asking some questions, she was there. So
Yes.
I think people on YouTube usually like when pets show up on camera.
Is it? Oh
Yeah.
my god. Okay.
I can be sure about it. There'll be a couple of comments
Hmm.
talking about just the cat.
The cat?
For sure. When you were talking about sugar, you meant we should talk about calories, but sugar is addictive. That is the problem. We spoke about addiction a bit, but and there's another comment also coming that talks about the cocaine comparison. Is what's your opinion on its comparison with addictiveness of drugs, of narcotics, I should say?
I think that is a little far fetched, also because ethically it's not possible for us to keep on giving someone sugar and test, whether they are getting addicted to it or not. But studies on food addiction over for ultra processed food, specifically the recent modification that the Yale food addiction scale went through, they did a lot of studies on food addiction before that. Okay, most foods that people are talking about in terms of addictiveness, they are either high in sugar or high in carb or both, high in fat. So fat rich, sugar rich, or both. That is how it's designed. So I think when people are speaking about sugar being addictive, they are not talking about sugar as the table sugar that we have. They are, or should be rather, speaking about sugar as an additive or as a component of multiple products that we see in the market. And all of those ultra processed foods that we have, they are designed to a bliss point where it's going to make you want to eat more and more of it. So my understanding of it is that while maybe sugar is not directly like cocaine, but the forms that people end up eating it in can become addictive. To give you a simple example, this whole khane ke baad meetha khana hai wala scene, okay? Everyone wants to have a certain, feels like eating something sweet after you've eaten your meal. Now, very rarely is anyone going to, and apparently you don't have anything at home, right? Some people do stock, say chocolates and ice creams and everything at home. But if you don't have anything at home and you are say going to a food delivery app or to a Blinkit or something, you're not going to end up ordering dates. You are going to go towards what is more fat rich and more sugar rich, like an ice cream or a dessert or something, because then that is the say messaging that your brain or you are going to give yourself, that that's the kind of nice thing that I have want to have. So yes, it is going to say make you want to eat more of it.
So the summary of what you were saying was basically um, the forms in which you tend to have sugar, such foods tend to be addictive, and
Could be to some people, not to everyone. So for to most people, it's not going to be addictive. Okay, as in it's not going to make call them out to eat that. But yeah,
generally, when we say addiction, that involves symptoms like withdrawal, like when you're that does that happen
doesn't
with you?
happen. So that happens with food for very few individuals, but it does.
Okay. So when you say very few, like can you give a percentage? Uh,
It's very difficult
like
to
is it
give, but
less than 1%?
yeah, very easily.
She's back. What do you want? Huh? What do you want? Huh? You want treats? I'll give you treats later. Can you get off? Can you not distract me? Huh? No, Miso. Please, you're scratching me. You're gonna tear my shirt. Okay. Her name's Miso.
Me
So,
too. How
yeah.
lovely.
Yeah. I think genetics gut microbiome part was missed. These also play a role in health despite you eating healthy. So, for a person who is genetically predisposed to, let's say, being sick, let's say that person is eating as healthy as possible, uh, can their bad genes still result in them being sick despite eating healthy?
So gene expression is there's just two parts to this question here. One is genetics and the other is gut microbiome.
Gut microbiome.
Let's speak about the genetics aspect first. Now, you have genetics, like you have a certain programming that you are born with, and you have something called its expression of those genetics, okay, or of those genes. You have a cancer gene, for example. Whether it will get expressed or not, it also depends on the gene, because say for breast cancer for example, some genes are very very predominant, and you will see that it does in always happen, like it gets expressed and people do get cancer if you have that gene. But there are some other genes which are less strong in expression, to put it simply.
I think the word is recessive, right?
No, not dominant and recessive genes. That will be going into core genetics, not that. But say gene expression, like your genotype and phenotype. What you are, what whether a gene gets expressed or not. As the say you have a gene for obesity, but whether the gene does, whether you do become obese or not, it also depends on your environmental factors. So the expression of any gene is very much dependent, like not every gene, but of these chronic diseases, for example. We still don't have all of the genes mapped and everything, but let's speak about obesity because that is the primary concern. So if you have a gene for obesity, from the ones that are identified, it does not always mean that you will become obese in life. If you do manage the external factors, like say your diet, your stress levels, your work, the air that you're breathing, even the exercise that you're doing, then you can come to a point where it is not going to be expressed. So it's not a given. It's not, these genes are not like the brown eyes and black eyes scenario that, you have this black eye gene only, then you're going to get black eyes only. These are also regulated by environmental factors, the expression of these genes. So, yes, genetics do play a role, but I find that especially where chronic diseases or lifestyle disorders are concerned, we are using genetics as a very easy fallback. So me saying that everyone in my family is slightly overweight does not necessarily mean, or it doesn't always imply that I have the genes for being a little overweight, but it for sure does mean that everyone in my family eats unhealthy. So that is a factor that we need to be very conscious about. Of there is something called genetics. Yes, there is gene and gene expression, but it's not always true, especially in say diseases like the lifestyle disorders that we are seeing today. 99% of it is still say a function of what you're eating and whether you're exercising or not, whether you're sleeping okay or not, what are your stress levels, and all of those factors.
And there was one more part of the question regarding gut microbiome. So I'll ask um, a more simpler question about that. So let's say I eat a lot of ultra processed foods all the time. So my gut microbiome, I can assume it's not in a very good condition.
Yes.
So let's say at this point, if I want to start eating healthier, I want to eat more salads, more fruits. Does the fact that my gut microbiome is not in a good condition impact how healthy I can be?
So this is very interesting. They did some fecal transplant studies, okay, where they actually transplanted poop from populations in healthy African tribes into, say, a small group of people who were obese in the US. Of course, this is a very preliminary study that had happened, but then they found that those people started eating healthier or losing weight or started not making the choices that they were making, or simply getting a little leaner. Little that it's not like if they were 100 pounds or 200 pounds, is overnight they became 50 pounds. Not like that, but statistically still significant. Say. Improvement was found in a very small group. So, gut microbiome that you have does regulate or does impact your body weight, but to say that if I take this probiotic, all my fat is going to melt away is saying that the moon is now ready to be ready for a human inhabitation or stuff like that. It is just overstretching whatever findings we have. But if you look at, say, the example that you gave, that if I'm someone who has been eating a lot of ultra processed foods over time, and now I start eating healthy, or I want to start eating healthy, will that gut microbiome that I now have hold me back or not allow me to become healthier or lose weight? No. What does happen is that as you start eating healthier, as you start eating, say, exercising, as you start hydrating well, and all of those factors, healthy factors, essentially, what happens is the good bacteria that we have, the beneficial bacteria that we have in the gut microbiome, they increase in number or they start repopulating. So you don't necessarily need a probiotic to do this. You don't need to be taking a supplement, because if you look at the way probiotics are managed, your body is pretty self-sufficient to be able to manage the probiotics. It all depends on the prebiotics and what you're eating. So, and we are literally born with a gut microbiome, all of us. So whether some good beneficial bacteria or beneficial colonies are increasing or decreasing depends on the diet and environmental factors. So you can change your gut microbiome for the better. We don't know the exact mechanism, or can't say for sure. It's not like a vaccine that you inoculated yourself with a certain strain in XYZ and you suddenly became like Thor. It doesn't happen that way. But you do see a beneficial effect the moment you change your diet on your symptoms. So typically, if you see symptoms of a poor gut health, are going to be something like you not having the right kind of poop, because if you know that A lot of people assume that being able to poop out everything, like, as in a lot of poop, which actually is beneficial, or a lot of yellow poop is beneficial, all of that are bad poop examples. Your poop should be like that of a snake, like, it should be like a snake or a sausage coming out. It should not be like all over the place, nor should it be like you have to call out to your mom and be crying in the loo. Either ways are extreme. So there's a scale for, because you have a lot of people with a scientific like mindset. There's a scale called the Bristol stool scale. If you look it up, you can find what is normal poop. So
Can
that
you tell me
changes.
the name of the scale again?
Bristol stool scale.
Okay.
Bristol. Bristol stool scale. So even if you look that up, you will find that is how your poop should look. So this changes, when you start to eat healthier, when your gut microbiome is changing for the better, your poop changes, the pooping frequency changes, how easy it was it changes, and how even something like bloating is going to change, or acidity, reflux, headaches, breakout. All of these are factors which happen because of a poor gut health to a lot of people. So those change.
Yeah, these are all fine. I saw a video saying that drinking fruit smoothies are not healthy. I don't understand how much uh, it makes difference. So, yeah, can you tell us about fruit juices, smoothies compared to eating the raw fruit?
Hmm. So when they say fruit smoothies, do they mean like just fruits blended,
I
or
think so.
fruit with
I
something?
I don't know, but you can talk about both.
All of it. Okay, cool. So, fruit smoothies could be of multiple types. It could just be that you are blending up, say, a watermelon or five, six oranges, and then you are having it. That is not recommended, because then you are just, fruit is also sugar plus fiber and some micronutrients end of the day. So, if you take a simple example that you're sitting with, say, a basket of oranges or a basket of apples, and you're eating them raw as is, how many are you going to be able to eat? Four, five, six, but you can very easily drink off, say, one glass of orange juice made from four or five oranges. And then that way, what you're getting, and on top of that, if you're going to strain it, then it's just sugar. It's pretty much like any say soft drink that you're drinking, okay, because these days soft drinks are also added with vitamins and minerals, they're also fortified. So it becomes like that, and hence fruit juices is not recommended. I've done a very detailed article on this for Truth Be Told, in case you want to link that as well, whether fruit juice is like cola, when you are drinking it.
You can
um,
just share that link with me.
I'll share that with you. So because it's also like another exploration in a scientific angle. But if you're talking about fruit smoothies, wherein you're using a fruit, you're adding, say, some oatmeal for some additional fiber or a little carb, and you're also adding in some protein, a scoop of protein to it, and then you're using this combination as a breakfast replacement, because you don't have the time to make a breakfast, or you just want something which is a little sweeter, or you want to take it to work or to your gym. You can very much do that. There is no harm in doing this, but make sure that you're not adding in any fruit juice to thin it or anything, because then that's just that much extra sugar. So if you are keeping all of the pulp and everything intact, and having it not for every meal, but once in a while, say for just one meal every day, and also ensuring that there is some other protein and whole carbs in that, you can have it. There's no harm. Especially if it also means that you're not going to be eating frosted cereal for breakfast.
You are too focused on going against the trends in the name of rationality while ignoring so many studies that have linked sugar consumption with multiple threatening diseases, especially because of how rapidly it transforms into glucose and eventually exhausts the beta cells in the pancreas, potentially causing things like hyperglycemia, which is a life threatening condition. Uh, you also ignored epidemiological studies that link ultra processed food consumption with deteriorating mental health. There are literally studies showing consumption of these foods decrease the volume of the brain in areas like the hippocampus. Besides, even if it's the if it's about the amount you take, you forgot to mention the important point that an experiment by a UK doctor who ate only unprocessed foods, I'm assuming, for 30 days had a 30% increase of hunger hormone. uh, the more you consume these foods, your cravings keep increasing. These foods are meant to be addictive, and it's extremely hard to eat healthy, if at all. So I'll just ask the question based on this
Yes, you
comment.
asked me the question.
So I understand that hyperglycemia simply means excess sugar in blood,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And that can be different, all sorts of different levels. So Hy- it depends on the quantity or the level of hyperglycemia before you say it's life threatening, right? Like
yes,
you can
of
have
course.
chronically high blood sugar, but your life is still not threatened. But once it goes above a certain threshold, I think it's a
Yes.
lot of functions in your body get affected. So, is it okay to say that uh, like sugar is rapidly transformed into glucose, which exhausts the beta cells in pancreas and leads to this? What are your thoughts on that?
The sugar or the insulin response to sugar is very tightly regulated in our body. Okay, the moment you start eating, or even before that, you have all of these enzymes and hormones on the standby. Okay, the moment you get hunger cues or the moment you see food, your body becomes ready to digest it. What happens is that when you're eating too much, say fat or too high a sugar, your body does make that much more insulin to be able to manage that glucose load that is coming in, especially sugar. So, and in some individuals, especially the ones who are carrying excess weight or are obese, these insulin receptors get masked because of the fat cells, because of so much fat. Okay, so your body keeps on making more and more insulin, but that insulin is not able to do that job. So the hyperglycemia is going to be a result of insulin resistance in individuals who have excess body fat or who are obese.
This comment said sugar is easily transformed into glucose, and that exhausts the pancreas beta cells.
No, so no, it doesn't exhaust the beta cells of the pancreas. If that was to happen, for every time you would say go on a binge drinking thing, next day you would have a pancreatic failure or some such. But it doesn't happen that way. But yes, when you are constantly taking in too much sugar, your body does say that I don't know what to do with this now because there's just simply not enough time to be able to process it in a way that can get packaged and be sent to your muscles, and hence it sends it immediately to what is the nearest fat tissue, which typically is the abdominal fat tissue. And that is why you see that when you start gaining weight, typically this region, the waist circumference increases.
What is the relationship between hyperglycemia and your life being threatened?
See, hyperglycemia, the term per se, anything above now the current norm says that 75 to 110 fasting blood sugar is what is a normal range. So then, by that definition, 115 also becomes hyperglycemia, and a fasting blood sugar of 500 is also hyperglycemia. So, like you rightly said, it depends on the levels, whether that hyperglycemia is going to translate into you getting the stroke or something or not, or you're just going in a coma or not, or something even worse. So that by itself is not a correct statement. But yes, if you are diabetic, especially, you do need to be very careful of what range your sugars are in, because As diabetes progresses, if you're not managing it well, then you will see that that level of hyperglycemia keeps on increasing. So if initially your fasting blood sugar was 250 and hence your doctor said that be careful, your HbA1c is still around 6.1, but your fasting blood sugar is 250, you need to manage your diet. Otherwise, I will have to start a medication and then you're going to become diabetic, right? Which you pretty much are at those levels. And you don't still change your diet, then you will see that the next time you do a test, possibly your fasting blood sugar could be even more than 250 because the overwhelm of your system increases.
Mm. So I was of the understanding that it's high BP that causes stroke. So how does high sugar also lead to stroke?
Yeah, because all like when you have higher sugar, your blood pressure is also going to increase and hence leading you to stroke.
There's an experiment done by the UK doctor who ate only UPFs for 30 days and had a 30% increase in the hunger hormone. Are you familiar with this experiment?
Yes, I am. Yes.
So, what was the conclusion of this experiment?
So this, what this doctor did, this was a documentary released by the BBC, I believe. And what he did was he did eat a lot of ultra processed food. Like 80% of his diet was ultra processed foods for 30 days. And then they checked his initial, say, body fat and how the hormone levels were and everything at the beginning. And towards the end, that they found that it was he had gained weight, significant weight. So, if I remember right, in 4 weeks he had gained around 3.5 or 4 kg of body weight. So, on a 80% ultra processed fat diet. Ultra processed foods diet. So, which is significant, which then the conclusion was that if you continue to eat like this, you are going to weigh, multiply by, say, 12, that much heavier at the end of the study. I think what is interesting in this comment is the mention of the hunger hormones, where they saw that the hunger hormones increased in this individual who was eating ultra processed foods. I have not been able to find the real data of all of this because, like all documentaries, it's not end of the day a randomized controlled trial that you can rely on, but when we are speaking about hunger hormones or we are speaking about leptin, which is your fullness hormone. So you have two hormones in the body. One is ghrelin and the other is leptin. Leptin is the fullness hormone. Leptin is a hormone which tells you essentially that you have eaten too much, now you need to stop. Ghrelin is a hormone which tells you that you need food. One would think that people who have extra fat in their body or people who are obese would then have low leptin levels, right? As in, you would then want them to be eating that much more because then they are not full and hence they're eating. But the interesting fact is that obese individuals have very high fullness hormone levels, leptin levels. Why? This is again a parallel scenario to what is insulin resistance. You have a scenario called leptin resistance, where your body is making leptin, that much more leptin, to telling you to stop eating, but the extra fat around all of your body's receptors are masking the leptin, and hence it doesn't reach your brain and you don't stop eating. So, but that 30% increase in hunger hormone, I have not been able to find any concrete data on that. But I think it's pretty much common sense that if you are eating something which is ultra processed in a way that it is high calorie, high sodium, high added sugar, high fat, and you're going to eat it for 30 days, you are going to gain weight if 80% of your diet is, making that. Because A, all of these foods are hyperpalatable. B, they are also very low in, say, the fullness or the satiety levels because they're low on fiber. They are designed to make you want to eat more and more. If they had more fiber, you're not going to want to eat more of it. So they are also very low on fiber, and that is how it makes you are able to eat that much more of a pizza versus, say, a bowl of salad.
And they're high in calorie density.
Very high in calorie density. Yes.
What I would have been number one, I think there's a very bad experiment, one person experiment. I don't know what firm
Yeah.
conclusions you can draw, but what I would have been more interested to see was if this person ate mostly ultra processed foods, but
Hmm.
the total calories in his diet were controlled. Like he didn't exceed the calorie limit, but still met those calories using ultra processed foods. There, I would have been interested to see how his weight
Yeah.
changed.
So there is no mention of how many total calories he ate. I tried to look it up. There was nothing. So
Are there any studies like what I mentioned, where the total calories are controlled, but the diet is mostly ultra processed?
no, I have not. Not that I can recall any such, because it's like, trying to check, say, trans fat studies. You can't deliberately give people trans fat when you know that it could eventually lead them to, say, poor health outcomes. So we should look it up. I have not come across anything. Yeah.
So I have a very informal experiment that I do know of. I follow a lot of good fitness influencers, and there's someone I follow who tried spiking his blood sugar a lot while
Hmm.
still losing weight.
Yeah, you can do
So
that
yeah.
because of the calorie deficit.
Hmm. Yeah. So ultimately, it's calories that determine whether you gain or lose. It's
Yes.
not whether you have processed or unprocessed.
Yes, you do know of the rice and sugar water experiment, right? The famous
The
American
master
diet.
emoto,
I don't remember the name. The first American diet which actually gave birth to Atkins. I think it was Atkins only.
I don't know this.
Okay, so the experiment was where they used to send people to a camp where they were fed only rice and some sugar water. Okay, only that for, say, a month or a prolonged time, around 3 months. And it was found that all of these people, they dropped weight and they actually became healthier because they were simply on a very restricted calorie diet. They were eating only carbs.
And they were not eating ultra processed.
Anything else? Yeah, yeah.
So I have a comment here that says palm oil. You picked one random comment saying that it doesn't cause cancer. Not sure what he means by this. What he means by a random comment, but yeah, what the audience would like to know is whether palm oil is better or worse than other refined oils. That would have been good information. So we'll go to the next part after this. But yeah, any comments on that? Uh,
So, palm oil is omnipresent in ultra processed foods that we are seeing, especially in, say, India or even other places, unless there's like in some countries in Europe, there's a ban on palm oil. Um, the challenge is not, or rather, the thing to be worried about is not palm oil specifically, but whether it contains any partially hydrogenated uh, fat. So, which in turn can become trans fat, or also some parts of it is trans fat. So, trans fat is a known concern, and typically, if you look at most foods which are using palm oil, they also have partially hydrogenated palm oil, which leads to an increase in trans fat in your body. Hence, one recommends that to be a little conscious of how much palm oil you're taking. You can't say that palm oil by itself is terrible or evil, because palm oil is used in a lot of countries, but they are not using it as in a partially hydrogenated, like the solid form of the oil. When I'm saying partially hydrogenated, it's not the liquid form, but after hydrogenation, it becomes solid butter like substance. Um, Margarine is that, yes. So that is what is used, and that is problematic because trans fat is a known. I wouldn't call it a carcinogen, but rather it's not called like an obvious carcinogen. It's probable, like comes way down on the list. But trans fat has been linked multiple times to a lot of cardiovascular diseases or even diabetes mellitus, that is type 2 diabetes, or even instances where people are gaining weight. So obesity is also now classified as a chronic disease. So trans fat is a concern, not palm oil specifically.
I've also read that it's artificial trans fats that the body can't process well. Are natural trans fats okay? And I do know that natural trans fats are extremely rare.
Yeah.
Uh, but are they okay even if you know? I noticed that, for example, some of the foods I eat, they have to legally, they have to mention how many
Yes.
trans fats, how many grams of trans fats are there. So I noticed some foods do have maybe zero point zero 0.01, zero point zero 0.05 grams of trans fats. Uh, are those still fine to have?
The thing to note here is that the permissible limit or how much trans fat you can have in a day is less than zero point 0.1 grams. Okay. Now, you will find, say, a cheese slice, for example. A cheese slice says that it contains less than zero point 0.1 or zero point zero 0.01 gram of trans fat per serving, which is per one cheese slice. The problem is that if you are someone like most people are, that who is eating multiple packaged or ultra processed foods in a day. Now, a cheese slice is not ultra processed per se, but if you're eating a cheese slice, size one cheese slice, then you're having some bhujia, then you're having some samosa, or you had some other chips or something. The chances of all of this trans fat adding up is very high. So it can very quickly become more than zero point 0.1 gram per day. Very quickly, because zero point 0.1 is not a large number anyway, where fat is concerned. So that is why we say that you need to be careful of trans fat and also of the packaged foods that you are eating, because in India today, I'm seeing trans fats even in a lot of the so-called healthy ragi dosa mixes and everything as well. So here's a product which you are opting for instead of your standard idli dosa, because it is healthier. It has ragi in it, but the label says contains trans fats, and these products do not specify how much. Very popular big brands as well.
This is again about sugar being more addictive than cocaine. Um, you didn't address that. I actually did address addiction, but this person hadn't watched the entire video. But let's talk about that study, which compared the addiction of sugar with that of cocaine. So, is there any human equivalent study?
To know.
Okay. So, when someone says something like this, that sugar is more addictive or maybe more addictive than cocaine,
Mhm.
how seriously should we take that comment or whatever that person saying, in your opinion?
See, addiction, when we speak of addiction, and especially with the background of comparing it with cocaine, people who are addicted to cocaine, for example, they are going to go to the earth's end. They will, someone who is really addicted, they are going to sell out their whole, whatever they own, they'll sell themselves, to get that. They will go to any end to get that. You don't see that with food. Okay, you don't see that kind of a pure addiction or that kind of a response with food, simply because food is not like an absolute pure concentrated form of one product. Say cocaine, for example, it is an absolute concentrated form from the cocaine leaf, coca leaf. What is it?
I'm not sure. I have to
Okay,
look
so
it up.
a
It's an
certain.
opioid, I believe.
Yeah, it is an opioid. I'm not sure whether cocaine comes from the marijuana leaf or whatever, but anyway, of the leaf that it comes from. Okay, so because there are no other confounding factors in that, and it's like a pure drug that you're taking. Food, on the other hand, even if you are, say, eating those Twinkies, or you're eating, say, a gulab jamun, for example. A gulab jamun is a high fat, a high calorie product, right? But the chances of you becoming addicted to it are very low, or you can't compare it to cocaine, simply because as you start eating that gulab jamun, which is sugar loaded, but it also has some protein, after a point you're going to feel full or sick. You will get loose motions. So you selling out yourself and your entire life's belongings for gulab jamun is not going to happen. But food becoming a source of comfort, and food becoming a source where you fall back on when you are not feeling too great, or say people who have depression or anxiety and then are using food as a coping mechanism, it has been shown that the mental condition does worsen, because simply because then you are taking in more and more of sugar and of fat, like essentially high calories into your system, which again impacts the way your brain is thinking. Okay, so there's only as much joy that a certain sugar spike can give you. After a point, that joy becomes too much for your body, and then can, because the dip in sugars that happens can make you feel really low, especially if you already have anxiety or depression. So that is real.
And we spoke about this earlier also. Uh, Unlike sugar, cocaine can cause withdrawal, or something like a hard drug
Yes.
can cause
Yes.
withdrawal.
Yes.
Sugar, it's never really heard, it's never heard of that sugar caused withdrawal in a person.
Yes. So, but I feel that for us, if we keep on saying that sugar is not addictive, which is okay. It's no one is eating so much just sugar anyway. But I think the fear of anyone who is making this statement is that, hey, you can't take sugar lightly, is that we need to be aware of where all you find sugar, because now you are seeing sugar in the most unlikeliest of places. If something is, like, say, any condiment or a pickle, or I'll not be surprised if you find sugar in brined olives as well tomorrow. It's literally everywhere to make things hyper palatable. So added sugar, to me, the bigger say cause for concern is the hidden and added sugar, because a lot of times you don't realize how much sugar that say tablespoon of ketchup had, and if you're not conscious of it, it can add up very quickly. Having said that, it does not mean that you have to start putting ketchup and then putting out this much sugar in this much in one bottle of ketchup kind of scenarios. And those videos and everything are not something that I agree with, because you are not finishing off a bottle of ketchup in one sitting anyway. So someone telling me that what this one bottle of ketchup has 1 kg sugar is means nothing to me, because I'm not finishing off that whole bottle of ketchup in one sitting. But when you're trying to eat healthy, it is important to be conscious of where all your sugar is coming in from, so that you're not, without you realizing, because a lot of times people say that I don't really eat as much, but still I'm gaining weight. Why? It's because you're not estimating how much you're eating or your calorie intake, right? So that is the concern or the worry.
Yeah, talk about Maida refined flour.
Ooh,
uh,
favorite topic. Let's talk about jaggery being a great source of iron as well.
I hope
Which
that was
source of
sarcasm
iron?
because I don't know.
What?
I hope that was sarcasm
Of course. How
because
would
I
you
don't
even
know if
doubt
there's
that?
iron in jaggery.
What?
Because I don't know if there's iron in jaggery.
Every jaggery proponent will show you that it has truckloads of iron.
I do know that jaggery is some 85% sucrose.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know about the other
10%
micronutrients.
water.
Uh, so yeah, I want to ask you about Maida in general. Like, is maida intrinsically bad, or is it if you eat excess of things containing maida, leading to you having more calories? Is that the a bad thing, or is maida itself intrinsically bad?
Maida is nothing but whole wheat flour minus the fiber. Okay, so if I'm saying that I'm getting around 2 grams of fiber from one roti that I'm eating, if it is a maida roti, then I would get zero point 0.5 or even lesser, depending on the how refined that flour is, that much fiber. The only difference is that the protein values, the carbs values, everything remains the same between your little less in maida again, because the if it is refined, then the endosperm and the wheat germ and everything is gone. But overall, calorie wise, if you look at it, gram per gram, there's just a slight difference between whole wheat flour and maida. The difference is in the fiber. Okay, why is maida considered to be bad? I don't, as a nutritionist, I don't agree with these labels of good, bad, healthy, unhealthy at all, because food is a continuum. Everything has its place. You can be eating, say, nutties, or you can be eating some candy, and you can also be eating a salad. You can be eating all of it, okay? But maida becomes a thing of concern for most people, because if you look at where all you find maida, you find maida in your cookies and biscuits. You find maida in, say, a regular restaurant naan that you're going to order, in your bread, in even, say, pasta or noodle or everything. Now, we of late, now we have started eating a fair bit of maida due to simply, because of the simple fact that most of us don't have the time to cook at home. The number of times that people are ordering takeout or are ordering food in is very high. All of those discounts and promos and everything is also just making it back to worse, and then people are just ordering in all the time. Now, what happens is, when you're eating a maida roti versus a wheat flour roti, is if you are going to feel full eating two of those wheat flour rotis with the maida, you are going to start feeling full after three rotis. Okay, after three rotis, you're going to start feeling full. Okay, and then typically, if you look at, say, if you don't even take the roti example, you look at the maida in cookies and biscuits now, or cakes, desserts, everywhere. Okay, all of these again are designed to be hyper palatable. They are also fat rich and sugar rich to boot. So it's not just the maida that becomes a problem. Then it is the extra fat that is added, also the extra sugar that is added to that product. And biscuits are my like pet peeve. Everyone starts their day with a cup of tea and cookies and biscuits, and those are I call them the worst foods that you can start your day with, because they are nothing. There is no good nutrition coming out of it. So you are simply eating sugar, bad fat, and by bad fat I mean unhealthy fat. Let's call it, because most of it again is made from palm oil and can contain trans fat, all of those cookies that you're eating, and maida that it has. Okay, but if I am conscious of what I'm eating through the day, so to give you my own example, okay, when I don't have, say, a whole wheat one roti fulka available with my breakfast in the morning, I do eat one slice of bread with my, like a regular white bread with my egg, because I find that that much carb keeps me sane, because carb also has, say, a certain it adds on to your satiety levels. It's also going to help you with your energy levels. So if you're eating, you don't always have to be eating just protein, especially in your breakfast. So I have that when I am, I don't have that roti available to me in the morning. But I know, I'm conscious of the fact that I have to limit it to only one slice of bread. Most people can't. Most people don't know. The moment you make that bread a brown bread, then it becomes healthier in everyone's eyes, and then people just start eating four slices of it instead of eating one. That is the problem with maida, because the calories again can add up very quickly, and the way it is used in the food industry is in most hyperpalatable ultra processed foods. So on paper, it's wheat flour.
Mm. So, again, coming back to my question, is maida intrinsically bad? You'd say no, right?
No, No, maida is not evil, sugar is not evil. But the way you are eating it, the way it can creep up in your diet, the way it can creep up the number of calories that you're eating in a day, the way it can make you overeat without realizing because the satiety value is going to be lower. So, and then of course, like say a butter garlic naan, the butter also adds in another major layer of you wanting to eat more of it because it becomes tastier. So that is the problem.
I think we've reached the last question. The comment says opinion in this video looks very biased to me, like neglecting the results of credible sources on harmful effects of refined palm oil. I think we talked about this already, but I think yeah, the comment kind of reminds me about oils in general. And in your opinion, is there any universally superior oil, like one that's better than everything else?
No. See, all oils come with a different fatty acid profile. All oils come bring in different nutrients to your plate. Refined oils are simply refined to increase the shelf life so that more people can get access to that oil. The From a health point of view, it's not whether you are eating refined oil or cold pressed oil that matters, but the total quantity of oil that you're eating is what is more important. If just because you're using cold pressed oil and then you start eating, say, puris made in cold pressed oil or kachoris made in that every day, then even that cold pressed oil will give you heart disease or it is going to end up blocking your arteries because it is oil and fat at the end of the day. So it's not, there's nothing that cold pressed oil is going to go and clean up your arteries and going to, say reverse the process of atherosclerosis. It doesn't happen that way. But what does happen is oil by itself also has other micronutrients. So it would also have some antioxidants which do end up, like say, getting oxidized in the refining process. But if you ask me, I would not shell out, say, 5 times the money for an oil that I'm going to use for deep frying anyway every day because then it's like, and when you're heating it up at those high temperatures, all of those extra antioxidants that you paid, a lung and kidney for, are going to oxidize anyway. The high temperature, you lose all of that nutrition. So, one, there is no universal, fantastic Rolls Royce kind of an oil. Where health is concerned, it's not about the cold press oils and refined oils, but about the quantity of oil that you are taking in. And we all need to be eating a balance. So you can't be just saying that, oh, ghee is the universally best in the best thing in the whole world, so I will eat only ghee. No, because that way you're only going to get your saturated fatty acids and medium chain triglycerides. What about the rest? What about your PUFA that you need? What about the MUFA? You're not going to get that. For that, you have to eat plant-based oils, which could be in the form of mustard or curry or rice bran or anything. So you don't have any one universal gold standard in oil. And you can, obviously, if you can afford it, you can choose a filtered oil or say a cold pressed oil. But then anyway, you still need to be restricting the quantity of it. So you don't get a free pass to use as much of that oil you want just because it's cold pressed.
Got it. I think we're done with all the comments. I had a couple more questions. So the first would be regarding preservatives. People often consider preservatives to be something harmful that's often added to maybe tin canned foods or say fishes when they're given in a place that's far from the coast. They say that they add preservatives to keep the fish fresh. So what's your take on preservatives?
I don't know about the fishes, to be very honest, but I do know about preservatives in, say, all of our food products. So, any packaged food that you are buying off the shelf is going to mostly have preservatives. So, be it a bottle of ketchup or a packet of chips, it could, depending on what the product is. So, for example, ketchup is going to have sodium benzoate as a preservative. Chip is could be a combination of benzoate or any other potassium-based preservatives. So, we need to understand that how much of that preservative are they adding it. Just because it's listed does not mean that it is forming the primary basis of it. Okay, to give you a certain understanding of how much preservative is added. So for every 2 kg of ketchup that gets made, the preservative or the sodium benzoate that is added to it is half a pinch. Okay, only this much, like half a pinch. Anything more than that is going to make it bitter. But why do they add those preservatives? So that you don't die of toxicity, you don't die of any contamination like a botulism, or you don't die of any fungal infections or microbial, like you don't get dysentery or bacterial dysentery from a bad ketchup. So those preservatives are there to make that food safe for you. They are not there.
Ironically.
Yeah, those preservatives are not there to make that food unsafe for you. Every country has a food regulatory authority. You have FSSAI in our country. So they set out standards that how much of what all you can add to a product. Okay. Even if I am to say that, okay, BQE government, if no one is going to listen to, whatever is the health of the larger population, think about it from the food manufacturer's point of view. If they do add that much more of the preservative, it is not going to make that food tastier. You're not going to buy more of it. And that is very counterintuitive. It doesn't work for anyone who is in the business, right? So it doesn't, it's not like the more preservative you add, that much more you are going to end up taking it. So it has to be limited in a certain amount. And it is simply there to make that product safe to be consumed off the shelf. So, yeah, that's my take on preservatives.
So, in your whole career, have you seen preservatives that are actually harmful?
No, how? They will not get an approval to be added to large scale commercial, food manufacturing if they were harmful. You remember the way earlier you used to have, say, canned foods which had tin, right? Then they banned it. Why? Because earlier studies showed that it is safe. They actually, the whole tinning thing was happening to prevent leaching of toxins, like a reaction between a sour food and the iron and everything, and it would make it poisonous for people. Lead toxicity essentially is what was happening. So they would put tin. All of those cans were lined, and then they banned it and they changed it. Why? Because they found that it was still leaching. Okay, so there is regulation. Of course, now the concern becomes that you are lining it with something which is like a plastic form, and then you have microplastics in your food. Yeah, you have an authority which is looking over all of the people who are making food, whether it is safe for you or not. And you routinely see food being recalled and batches of food being declared unsafe for consumption and then being called back and everything. So that
Yeah.
happens.
That's the funny thing I always think about when I see a fear mongering video, because they act like, oh, this thing in the food is harmful, but where are they getting that information? They've read the food label and they just Googled it. So some article is already there, and that article means its safety has already been assessed.
Asserted. Yes.
So they're not like, if there's any actual harmful ingredient, they can never warn about that. That's the
Yeah, because there isn't, right? So, to like, why is sodium benzoate added to all of these fruit juices or everything? Because if you don't add that, the microbial activity in it, it's going to spoil it so quickly that one sip of it and you will have to be in the hospital with food poisoning. So that sodium benzoate is added to prevent you getting to the hospital with food poisoning.
So I had a few last questions. So the first one is food coloring. I've heard that some food colorings, like I've heard an influencer say that there's this food coloring called Sunset Yellow,
Yes.
E110, it's called.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that, as well as any other food colorings that uh, you've seen that are harmful or cause any harm, do
So
they cause any
yes.
harm? That
So
would
there's
be.
a list of food coloring agents which are not allowed. I will share that list with you, and then maybe you can put it up in the description. But most food that you see now, those colors, like especially the red color, I don't remember what it's called, but the one that is used in the thela chicken lollipop. Okay, that is a bad color, but it is used very commonly in say in the roadside eateries and everything because it's cheap as a color. So that is not okay for sure. But the other food color, like say even the titanium dioxide or the sunset yellow colors that are added to drinks, the quantity of those colors that are added is again the same as the preservative that is added. It's like only this much. So if you look at the percentage of what percent the color makes up of the entire product, you will find it less than 0.01%. So that way, if it is estimated as or it's been allowed as safe, then one can assume that it is safe to consume. But having said that, food colors you do know that are added to ultra processed foods or foods which are high in sugar anyway. So it's going to be added to a fruit juice, it's going to be added to a cookie. So from a health point of view, it anyway makes sense to limit your consumption of all of those foods. So that way you're not crossing the thresholds of what is considered a safe consumption limit. All colors that are considered carcinogens, again, especially the sunset yellow, the quantity that for it to become carcinogen is about 5 tablespoons per day over a span of time, over a span of 1 year. Then it can become a probable carcinogen. Could.
Hmm. But we
So
eat a pinch of it, right?
not even a pinch of it.
Hmm.
So the glass of juice that you end up consuming will not even have half a pinch of that color.
Hmm. Got it.
So better to not consume juice anyway.
So you mentioned that there is a red coloring that in roadside eateries which are bad.
Yes.
Like, what do
Yes.
you mean by they're bad? Can
They are
they are
bad
they
for the
carcinogen?
food industry to be added in.
Like how? Are they bad for our health?
Yes, for
How are
our
they
health.
bad? Can you talk about that?
As in they have heavy metal contamination in it,
Okay.
those
Okay.
colors.
So in packaged foods, does that particular color occur?
No, no. Unless you are buying that packaged food from someone who is making it at home
Hmm.
in a unregulated setup, then you don't know. It could even be like anything. If there's there's another green also which was banned.
I've heard of malachite green. Is that the one?
Could be. I don't remember the name.
Okay. I want to ask you about red meat. Are red meats carcinogenous intrinsically bad? I should ask. Yeah.
No.
So, when people say that red meats are harmful if you have them often, like
Mhm.
how bad is red meat?
So there are two factors to red meat consumption. One is that if you're having it too often, they are also very high in fat. So any red meat, if you look at it, it's going to be much more, like 3 times, 4 times the quantity of fat as compared to say a chicken. And high fat is linked to adverse impact globally. So that is why you are, told to not have too much of it. Red meat consumption is very, very high in, say, US or Canada and everything. So we cannot compare the Indian red meat consumption with those. Most studies, unfortunately, happen over there, especially for red meat. The way that red meat is also consumed is on a barbecue or, like say a steak, which is done over coals and everything. Because of the long-term, constant, continuous exposure of barbecued red meat, hence the warning. Because then it is that acrylamide that gets produced, and if you're eating it every Sunday or every Friday with friends and with alcohol and everything, that is going to be bad for you because it's a combination of very high saturated fat as well as the acrylamide that you could be taking in with it. But For India per se, it's more the total fat that you're taking in a day that matters. So if you say are eating mutton or you're eating liver, for example, in the morning, which is as red as it can get. So you have it for your lunch and then you're managing your fat intake through the rest of the day, you're good. There's no harm in that.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned acrylamide, and that was my last question also. So, can you first tell us what acrylamide is and is it harmful or not?
Yeah, so acrylamide is a substance that gets produced every time you are cooking any carbohydrate rich food at high temperatures. So now that cooking method can be, say, roasting over an open flame, like that chapati reel that is doing the rounds, or it can even be, say, deep frying, or it can be baking, anything at high temperatures. Pressure cooking, although it does happen at a higher temperature as compared to say pan grilling, it does not produce any acrylamide because it is increasing the say cooking it faster because of pressure. So it's pressure cooking and not high heat, high temperature cooking. Okay, so pressure cooking is safe. You can there is no acrylamide being produced. Now, when you are cooking, say even French fries or a roti or a puri or anything, which are all carb rich food sources, at high temperatures, you have this substance called acrylamide, which also can get produced when you are just heating up a non-stick cookware without putting anything in it. Acrylamide is a probable carcinogen. Okay, but the quantity of acrylamide that you will need to eat is very, very high. So if you're someone who is eating, say, about 100 kg of fries every day for 10 years, then your chances of that acrylamide becoming a carcinogenic compound and increasing your cancer risk. Understand this, a carcinogen is not going to cause you cancer. It increases your risk of cancer. There's too many via medium out here. Okay, so then your risk of cancer can increase. Okay, but the chances of you getting say a cardiovascular or a heart attack simply because of that much high fat is much bigger than the worry of with the acrylamide.
So, from everything you've said, my takeaway is that for someone who's aware of how many calories they're eating in general, and is also taking care of having that recommended amount of micronutrients and macronutrients, they're generally diet wise, they're okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also throw in some exercise every day.
Yeah, exercise for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's all the questions I had. Thanks a lot for
Thank
joining me,
you.
ma'am. And
Thank you.
yeah, for everyone who wants to go to her page, I'll link it below. And that's it. I'll see you in the next one.
See ya. Bye.
Hope you enjoyed watching that. My plan is to bring more experts like these to deliver the best possible information for all of you. Don't forget to check out her pages from the links below. If you like my content, it'd be really awesome if you could support me because that becomes my main source of income. You can either give me a one-time support using one of these options, or you could give me continued support using these options, for which you will get special perks that you see on your screen. I'd like to thank all my patrons who support me at the highest support tiers on Patreon and YouTube. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, remember, science is dope.